about that. Okay. So, of course, you know why we said S equal to int S, because we are trying to kind of retain the same variable name, but you can always change it. So what this does is going to cast this string to become an integer using the int keyword. Okay. You can always change here and say maybe S or say I equals int S. This now changes this to an integer. And why would you want to do something like this is for manipulation purposes. Like I think in the last class, we mentioned that there could be an instance where you want to, maybe change a digit. Okay, then we talked about it in terms of changing from an integer to a string. Because even if now I is an integer and it should be just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Without the quotation marks as a digit, you can also take it back to string using this keyword. I believe we talked about this in the last class, something like this. And this takes it back to become a string. And in the last class, we talked about this when we are saying you want to maybe make a modification to this number. You cannot modify the integer. So you can take it to become a string, even though remember a string is immutable, but there are still some manipulations you can conduct on a string to maybe change a digit. You want to say, oh, there's a mistake here and replace the digit with maybe 7, 3, replace it with 7. When is an integer, you cannot just manipulate it like that, but as a string, you can then manipulate it and bring it back to an integer. So when you want to go from a string to an integer, you use the int casting. Then when you want to go from an integer to a string, you can use the str. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In the same vein, you can convert an iterable to a list. Remember, it's not everything you can convert to a list. It has to be an iterable using the list keyword. For instance, if we want to make a list from S, we could have this, then S. But the S, whatever you're going to put here, must be an iterable. So this S now is an iterable, but we cannot, okay, no, let me call it S1 so that the computer will not get confused. So S is an iterable. We can make it a list. Also, S1 is another iterable. You can make it a list using this keyword. Right? Is that clear?
Yes.
And also we could convert again from maybe string, integer to float, for instance, using this float keyword. And I think you can also convert from a string to a float, similar vein, and vice versa. So if you convert this number to a float, the difference is going to have a decimal point and then 0 as it is. So it will become, let's So just try that and see. So let me print. Root of S. Let's see. Save it. Run. You see what happened? You've casted it to a float. So it adds that 0.0 because it's float. Even though you didn't have a decimal place, you do that casting. So with knowledge of this conversion, there are certain things you can achieve easily. If, for instance, someone says you should get something like you have a number like this, and they say get the decimal place. Just give me only the decimal place. How can you do it? One way you can do it is you can convert it to an integer and subtract it from this. For instance, if this is none, and I wanted to get just 0.23, I can convert it to an integer. So integer of none. Of course, when I do this, it's going to lose the decimal place. So it's going to be 11. Let's take this and become 11. Okay.
Okay.
Then to get the decimal place, you can then have none minus I none. Okay, so this will now be 11.23 minus 11. You then get the decimal place.
0.23.
Yes. So because we have this understanding of being able to, convert from one data type to the other, we can do this type of manipulation. But now you could see that the moment you convert a float to an integer, you have lost accuracy. Okay, because the integer cannot cater for the decimal places is lost. So if you go back here and try to convert this I num back to float, you will not get the same number. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So you have to bear that in mind, even though you can do some conversion, but sometimes you lose accuracy when you do that. So you have to be careful, even though it's possible, but just know when to do it. Okay? Because the moment you move from a float to an integer, you lose some data.
Values.
Yeah. And then when you want to come back, you can't exactly get those points back.
Initial. Okay.
So far, any question?
No, from this side.
Okay. The next one we'll talk about is Boolean. Boolean. So we all know Boolean to be of two types.